Resident Evil Episode 1 is called Welcome to Raccoon City. We hear the protagonist Jade speaking monologue saying, scientists said the world would end in 2036. Climate change, pollution, the oceans would boil, the air, you wouldn't be able to breathe it, billions of people would die, and then we see that Jade is laying down on a bridge. But she stands up. She says the world ended a long time ago. As we see, she is in London in the year 2036, which is 14 years after the end. We see Jade on a video call talking with her daughter and her husband, Arjun. She tells her daughter that when she was 9, she went to Disneyland. Her daughter has no idea what Disneyland is, but she asks if she can go. Arjun then says, go get your present to show mommy. Turns out he got her Shakespeare, which is a pretty big jump from the last time that Jade saw her reading a book 6 months ago, which was A Wrinkle in Time. Jade tells Arjun she misses him so much, and he asks her to be careful. She brings some gear and sets it up outside. Then she pulls out a bunny. She pricks the bunny and lays it down and steps back. She is watching and recording whatever might come next. Growing tired, she says, come on, show me something. Suddenly, a horde of zombies appear, seemingly being pulled from every direction, drawn by the blood from the rabbit. Jade says, day 167 of observation. Pack 2426, still no signs of leadership structure or higher brain function. She then stands up to retreat, but she cuts herself, attracting all of the zombies to run at her, and they run in this show. She manages to make it to one of her seemingly designated booby trap areas set up for this type of scenario. It shoots out flames in a 360-degree angle all around her. This kills most of the horde in one fell swoop. So her research for Pack 2426 is all up in smoke. A red powder is ejected after all this happens to put out the rest of the fire, leaving a coating of red all over the place. As Jade screams, 6 months, fucking stupid. She lost the herd. Then the ground starts to shake and we see something is underneath the pavement. It's a giant zombie bug. It comes from underneath the ground and Jade runs away, but then we're transitioned to 3 months before the end in New Raccoon City, 2022. Young Jade is driving through a suburb area with whom we find out to be young Billy, her sister, and her dad, Albert. We come to find out that they are in South Africa. A woman named Carol greets them and says it's nice to meet them. She says they're going to love it there, and if they get bored, Cape Town is just an hour away. Carol says, on behalf of Umbrella Corp, welcome home. Umbrella Corp bought New Raccoon City, and we find out they put a lot of money into it, and it's a place where they do research, and anyone that works there lives there. Jade and Billy are then outside, and she walks down the street to introduce herself to her neighbor. His name is Simon. But then we cut right back to Jade in current time. She's fighting with that giant zombie bug. He latches onto her and manages to slam her against the windshield of a truck. Then 2 men come in, guns blazing, and take down the bug pretty easily. A man named Maskey says, that's one big old bastard. And then he sees her tattoo on her wrist, which causes Maskey to say, she's a survivor. We find more about this tattoo later. So this episode lets us know that they're going to be playing with time a lot, going back and forth to before the fall to current times where the zombies are all over the place. So again, we're with young Billy and her dad Albert is drawing blood from her while Jade did her own sample and she brought it to Albert. He's running tests on both their bloods, but we don't really know what for yet. We then see what Billy and Jade's school is like. Billy explains to a classmate that her and Jade have the same dad with different egg donors as mothers, but they were born at the same time, so they consider themselves to be twins. This same classmate then picks on Billy for being a vegan, and they end up getting in a fist fight. Then we're transitioned to Albert, where a commercial is playing from Umbrella, and he is reacting to this commercial, and they say, Umbrella, where our business is life itself. It's an ad for Joy, which is supposed to help people with things like chronic depression and OCD. Albert is talking to an associate on the phone, and he says they should take a step back because of what's happening in Tijuana. This man rejects this claim, and he says that Eli Lilly made $3 billion off Prozac in a year, and they could double that in the first month with Joy. Jade then comes in screaming at her father for not being there for them. He was supposed to pick them up from school, but he forgot, and he got caught up with work. Then there are videos surfacing online of Billy in the fight, and everyone is laughing at her. Billy claims the fight is her fault, but Jade says the whole school is laughing at you. You need to shut them up. This is not your fault. Back to Jade in current time. She's fresh off of landing on the windshield. She has a medical gown on. She's laying on a table. She then gets dressed and clicks on a news feed, and it shows chaos going on all over the place, but it's then interrupted by an ad from Umbrella claiming that they have a drug that stops 99.99% of cancer in its track. Jade then asks the computer where she is, but a man named Tate answers. He says she's in Brighton, Brighton Freehold to be specific. Jade learns that Tate and his crew are something like scavengers, but they only take what they can trade. Jade wants to leave. Tate claims she can't. Tate then shoots a flare in the air to show hundreds, if not thousands, of zombies surrounding them. And then Tate says, "You really can't leave." Back to young Billy, she goes up to the person she got in a fight with and apologizes, but they do not accept the apology, and they smush their sandwich in Billy's face, making her laughed at again. Albert is then shown the, quote, last footage out of Tijuana. There's screaming, there's gunfire, chaos, and then a doctor screams, "Why won't he die?" Turns out 6 people are injured, 3 are dead, and Albert asks if anything has gone public. The man next to him claims it's nothing they can't handle. But then he says, "Albert, if it's happening again, we don't know what this warning means yet, but it's something to take note of." Then someone dressed up as the school mascot knocks out this bully clean, the one that was picking on Billy. The principal then takes Billy out of class, takes her to her locker, tells her to open it, and sure enough, the mascot outfit is in there. But Billy claims she had nothing to do with it. Her father shows up, and the other father is already there, who then curses when he finds out that this father is Albert Wesker, a name that means something around there. Albert says, "You threatened my daughter." The man named Dave, the other father, says, "No, he didn't." Albert then pulls a power move on Dave, and he says, "You have a run-of-the-mill job here at Umbrella." While Albert is very high up, he says he works too much. He's not much of a father, but he tries. Dave says, "What does this have to do with anything?" Albert says, "Umbrella needs me. What happens if I tell them I'm going to quit unless they fire you?" Dave doesn't want that, and neither does Albert, but he's just saying all this to try to get Dave to listen to him. Dave says, "Look, man, I'm not going to call the cops. This whole thing never happened." Billy claims she didn't do it anyway, and Albert believes her. But Albert says, "You attacked my daughter twice, so you owe her an apology." She apologizes, Billy accepts the apology, and then Albert gets Billy a day off from school. Jade is outside and then asks Billy what happened. Billy replies, "I know what you did," implying that Jade is the one who knocked out this bully. Then we see Jade back in current time talking with Tate. She calls the zombies surrounding them zeros, and she wonders how many there are out there. She explains that they aren't dead. They have the T virus, and it doesn't kill them. It rewires their brains. She says the zombies outside are zero strain carriers, and all they want to do is eat and spread the virus. And when the T virus crosses species, it makes cells grow rampantly, causing monsters like that giant bug we saw earlier. Tate asks what she was even doing out there to begin with. Jade replies her job. She studies zeros, how they change, evolve. Tate then cuts her off and says they don't change. Jade says they will. She says we need to treat it like any other virus. We made them, so it's our problem to deal with. Then we learn more about Jade being a survivor. Tate says you survived the first wave, right? Knowing this from her tattoo alone. You were in New Raccoon when the outbreak started. He says he spent 10 years in peaceful hiding at Fair Isles while the world went to shit. But she was in the thick of it. She doesn't seem to like talking about it. And then a man comes in and says they are 30 out. Turns out that Umbrella is coming, and Tate had called them on a bounty that's on Jade. She's the #1 most wanted survivor of Umbrella Corporation. Back to young Billy. She's riding on an electric scooter around the complex. She gets scanned into the building and walks around to a waiting area to wait for her dad. Before he gets there, she notices that bunnies are being transported to the elevator and then taken to floor B4. Albert shows up and says the cafe is this way. Back at home, Billy asks Jade if they knew that Umbrella was doing animal testing. She says that no one knows, and PETA even gave them an award. She tells her of the rabbits. Jade says, "I told you this place is bad." Billy says they need to expose them for doing tests on the rabbits. She says people need to see. Billy and Jade then go to the facility. They play a voice note of their father, Albert, to get into the facility after hours. But then we cut back to current time. Jade warns Tate not to trust Umbrella. She says they will betray him the first chance they get and to let her go now before it's too late. Umbrella Corporation then show up in helicopters, and they come in completely armed with armor and weapons. Mr. Baxter shows up, and Tate says Jade's over there. He says cool, and then shoots Tate right in the head. So Jade was right. And then Mr. Baxter's guards start lighting up the place, shooting everyone in their sight. Jade runs off and tries to escape. Back to young Jade and Billy. They see all the rabbits locked up, and they're sick over it. But then they see a monkey in a glass case also locked up. Jade then logs into her father's account while Billy takes photos. Jade clicks on a file named Tijuana Incident and watches the video that Albert watched earlier. Billy then walks to the back and sees a cage labeled Joy Trial 998. She opens the door, a light flashes, and we see a rabid dog. They run and hop in the elevator, but the dog follows them upstairs. They hide under tables, but the dog still looks for them. Then they bump into a table, which turns on a marketing ad that gives away their position, and the dog runs right towards them. He hops on the table right over the animated ad that's playing. Then the dog finds them and they run into the next room. They run out towards the front door, but they cannot get out. They try to use the audio clip that got them into the facility, but it doesn't work. Then, out of nowhere, the dog breaks through the glass into the room that they're in and bites Billy in the neck. Jade then gets a fire extinguisher and beats the dog to death, but it's too late. It already did a lot of damage on Billy, and we don't know how bad it is, but at this time, it looks like she's dead. Back in current time, she's running away from Umbrella Corp as they burn the place down, literally. Baxter then finds Jade. He says, "Your sister has been looking for you." So now we're led to believe that Billy's actually alive and that she survived that encounter with the dog. Jade doesn't believe it. She says, "Stay the fuck away from me," and jumps off the building towards the zombies below to end the first episode.